Hello everybody, and welcome to, a new series. I'm calling it Reverse Gear, and it's a history series. History on vehicles, manufacturers, racing series, etc. And, before I begin, I want to level the playing field. Yes, there's another one called Donut Media, up to speed. It is very good, don't get me wrong. I like it, I watch it, it's very good fun. And if you're thinking, well, this is going to be too similar, I'm going to try and set the facts straight, because unfortunately, in their research and effort to be comedians, they don't exactly have always the most accurate data, if that makes sense, like a 278 horsepower Ferrari, or a non-road legal Aston Martin Vulcan, or Valkyrie. So, I just thought, if you're gonna do it right, you gotta do it yourself. So, that is why I'm here right now. I just wanted to get that off my chest. But with that being said, let's get into the video. And I hope you enjoy. We start off with the Ferraris of the Forest. One of the greatest manufacturers in motorsport history, and you've never heard of them. I'm talking, of course, the one, the only, the Lancia. Now, Lancia began 112 years ago. And from the early 1900s all the way up until about 1960, there were lots of groundbreaking and innovative technologies going on at Lancia. Such revolutions as the first car to be fitted with a production V6, or the first chassis to have to be made a monocoque. These are some groundbreaking technologies, all while in cars that look absolutely stunning. I mean, they weren't very fast, but they were absolutely gorgeous, and they were super rare in the US, as in, I've seen two of them, both of them are at very prestigious car shows. However, all of this paled into insignificance when they were bought by Fiat in 1969, and Fiat basically gave them a bucket load of money and said, build a car. So, in 1969, they built, this. This is a Lancia Fulvia 110 horsepower front-wheel drive V4 engine powering this two-door coupe, and it is brilliant. Unfortunately, there wasn't really a market for it because it was too expensive, so they made a market. If you had a front-wheel drive car that wasn't very powerful, there was only one motorsport you could compete in: rallying. And by the 1970s, they had a full factory team and was known as the International Championship of Makes, which is basically the WRC manufacturer's title before the WRC existed. And, by 1972, Lancia claimed victory, becoming, I believe, the last front-wheel drive car to ever win a rally championship. That's pretty impressive, but not as impressive as this. Based on its mid-engine Ferrari and layout, its super sleek body style, rear-wheel drive, absolutely gorgeous lightweight car, weighed less than 2,500 pounds, you would think this 1973 Lancia Stratos would be designed for circuit racing. But actually, it was the first vehicle ever to be designed solely for the dirt. Yes, and since it was designed by Lancia for the dirt, specifically for the dirt, becoming the first vehicle to ever do so, it was pretty successful. In 1973, it won the manufacturer's title, and then it did the exact same thing 2 years in a row. And even in later on in the 70s, it was still winning drivers' titles in 1977 and 1988, making it one of the most successful rally cars of all time up to that point. Lancia certainly knew a thing or two about how to win at rallying, which is strange as to why they built this. You see, they wanted to compete in the new Group 5 regulations in the mid-70s, so they built the Monte Carlo. This is based off a Lancia Beta. The rules said you had to have the roof, the hood, and the doors the same. Everything else would be different, so if you maybe look at it like this, it looks like a Lancia Beta. Everything else was completely different, and that meant 475 horsepower, rear-wheel drive, a massive body kit. I mean, it was mental. However, on a track, Lancia's never been there before. They've been conquering rally stages, not circuit races. However, since it's a Lancia, there's no other word for it. It was, well and truly, a very successful, almost dominant Group 5 car. In 1979, it won its 2-liter category for the International Sports Car Championship. And then, in 1980 and 1981, it won the overall Sports Car Championship 2 years in a row, cementing Lancia not just as a forest dweller's dream, but as a serious, hardcore racing team that, well, could pretty much do anything that they wanted. And what they wanted to do was win, so they were rather good at that, since they are now up to over 7 titles between the two motorsports. That's pretty darn impressive, especially for a company that you've never really heard of. But circuit racing was never really their thing. So, when the FIA announced that there would be this new section of regulations called Group B, they decided we're going to use those regulations to build a car that could beat the 1982 WRC champion, the Audi Quattro, and its four-wheel drive system. That was a pretty tough order because rear-wheel drive is not very good on dirt stages, as opposed to the four-wheel drive Quattro. And everyone thought the Quattro was absolutely unstoppable. But Lancia had a trick up their sleeve. It was called Project 037. And someone in Lancia's marketing department said, I like the sound of that. And by 1983, the inaugural season of Group B, this is the Lancia 037 Stradale. It's rear-wheel drive, mid-engine, weighed less than 2,500 pounds, very similar to the Stratos, but it had a supercharged 6-cylinder engine. So, could it beat the Quattro? That's the question. Now, the Quattro would obviously have the advantage on the dirt stuff, but the Lancia had the advantage on the tarmac, and it was still a relatively even mix of tarmac and dirt stages in 1983. So, a titanic battle ensued. The championship was always in contention. Every rally would be Lancia, Audi, going back and forth, gaining point after point after point, until finally, in the 1983 San Remo Rally, an armada of 4 037s, driven by chiefly Walter Roll, was able to claim the manufacturer's title for Lancia, marking the last rear-wheel drive car to ever win the World Rally Championship, and the only rear-wheel drive car to ever beat the mighty Quattro. But all good things must come to an end, and the 037 just got outclassed. It could not keep up. This Quattro here, 650 horsepower, boost up to 750 if you need it. Or this Ford RS200, That had 800 horsepower with the racing fuel, so it was quite clear that Lancia needed to up the game. But nobody could have expected how much they would have upped it. And 1986. This is the monster. It started out in life as a Lancia Delta, but then they added a turbocharger and a supercharger to its 4-cylinder engine, put massive aerodynamics on it, and it went like a bat out of hell. It was so fast through these forests, it wasn't even funny. And one young driver, Henry Toivonen, could drive this vehicle like nobody else could. It was man and machine in perfect harmony. Sadly, that harmony, however, would result in the death of Toivonen by falling off a cliff in the 1986 championship, resulting in a ban of Group B cars, making the Delta S4 the most successful car to never win a WRC championship. But to show how fast this vehicle is, we're going to race this hatchback-ish against a 740 horsepower, all-wheel drive, modern-day Lamborghini Aventador SV on a quarter-mile drag race. The Lancia catapults 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds. It is immense. And it's just barely eking out the Lambos. It's still going, it's still winning, and the Lancia will claim victory by a car's length. These are 700 horsepower all-wheel drive monsters, and they got humiliated by a car from 1986. But the S4 was illegible for Group A regulations, which were much more restrictive on power and handling, so they upgraded it and detuned it to make the Integrale for the next generation of Lancia Delta, and we basically have a very detuned Group B car from a ultra-successful rally team competing in a class of newcomers like Subaru and Mitsubishi. So, what did the Lancia do? The road car was actually one of the first Lancias to actually be reliable, because that was the main problem plaguing Lancias, is their unreliability, and the fact that they broke down every 5 minutes. But this one, it was actually quite nice. But could that transfer to the Rally Series? Because just 1 year after Group B folded in 1987, they entered the Integrale for Lancia Martini Racing. And since it's a Lancia, it was quite successful. In 1987, it won the manufacturer's title and the driver's title. In 1988, it won the manufacturer's title and the driver's title. In 1989, it won the manufacturer's title and the driver's title. In 1990, it won the manufacturer's title only. In 1991, it won the manufacturer's title and the driver's title. And in 1992, it won, guess what, the manufacturer's title. It is, to this date, the most successful rally car of all time, giving Lancia 10 WRC victories. That is immense. That is a ridiculous amount, and it would have won the 1993 season, but that's where things get sad. Lancia was hit by a few recessions, and they just couldn't get the financing. So they disbanded Lancia Martini in 1993, meaning they couldn't win the championship. And then things only got worse from there. You see, they were clutching straws in the mid-90s and early 2000s, but then this little thing called the 2008 stock market collapse happened, and that's where Lancia's story ends. They do make cars still. They make one rebadged Fiat 500, in Italy only, and they're basically kept on life support. It is one of the saddest things in the world. Honestly, should they still be operating? Probably not. unless they make a new rally car, unless they get back into the spotlight, they're just fading out of obscurity, and no one will remember what the Lancia name is. And that's sad, because to this date, they are still the most successful manufacturer in the history of rallying. 25 years after abandoning the series. They've won so many things, so many brilliant cars, and yet no one remembers them. So, yeah, it's sad. But that is where the Lancia story ends, and that will be it for this episode of Reverse Gear. I hope you like it. It's quite a pain to make them, but I think they're very rewarding, and I would quite like to continue making them. For future vehicles and manufacturers, I have lots of ideas. But that is going to be it for this episode of Reverse Gear, and hopefully I'll be back with more.